What is going on, all of you hungry gamers out there in the world? I'm Mega Am, so thank you for watching this review video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And today I am talking about the recent, little under a month ago to this upload, the recent release of Pac-Man World 2 RePac, which is a remake of the original Pac-Man World 2 that was released about a couple decades ago on platforms like Xbox, GameCube, PS2, I believe, all those generations. If you remember, a few years ago, Bandai Namco released Pac-Man World RePac, which was a remake of the original Pac-Man World, and this one is a remake of 2. And especially as someone who had played the original just a year and a half ago as of this upload, I wanted to give some of my thoughts here. So we're going to start with like light spoiler thoughts. I'll go through like probably the first level of gameplay here. And then I'll go full out spoilers at the end of this video. So let's jump into the game here. There's multiple save slots, so I should be able to start a new game. Difficulties are options are great to be able to choose between. But before we get into this, just my overall thoughts. I do not like the original Pac-Man World 2, which I know is a bit of a hot take. My thing is that at its core, it felt like a really good 3D platformer to me. And that's what this game is, right? This game is your mid-2000s kind of, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill, but it's, you know, pretty standardized a 3D platformer collectathon game where you're going around exploring these different levels as Pac-Man, collecting fruit, getting different unlockables that way. And the original just felt too clunky to me. That was my problem with it, and this remake knocks it out of the park. I was honestly hoping after I played the original Pac-Man World 2, I was really hoping they would do a repack of this, because the original Pac-Man World repack I actually really like as well. Never played the original of that game, but I really liked the repack. And to me, if they applied some of those modern design sensibilities to the original Pac-Man World 2, which I just kind of felt was clunky, and honestly really kind of a tough 3D platformer that like didn't really give you a lot of the modern sensibilities that a lot of 3D platformers now have. Also, the collectibles in that game, did not love how they handled that. It was very cryptic and not easy to keep track of collectibles, which you kind of want in a 3D platformer, almost need in a game where you're collecting things. I was hoping they would do a repack of that game to clean up some of those, and I have to say I really like this version. This game has made me appreciate Pac-Man World 2 as a game, because the original game at its core had a lot of really good ideas, and like the collecting and like the core collecting and platforming was solid at its core. It's just there was too much around it that just ruined the experience for me, to the point where I was so ready to be done. I don't even know if I 100% completed the game. I might not have finished the final world and gotten all the collectibles, but I really wanted to, but I didn't, because it was just too much for me. Thankfully, this game handles things a lot better. So just to go over the general premise before I jump into what makes this repack version different than the original, you're playing as Pac-Man. Spooky the Ghost is summoned when all of his ghost buddies steal the golden fruit from the big tree here in Pac Village, and you have to go and stop him. Now, he has all these tree roots. There's the evil tree and the good tree. The good tree is the one here that would have normally had all the golden fruit. You're trying to rescue those throughout each world of this game. There's also the evil tree that kind of starts to take over, and that's like Spooky's tree. I forget what the name of it is, but pretty simple premise, but you don't need a crazy story for a 3D platformer like this. But you start off here in Pac Village. It's kind of like your hub area, which you can kind of like explore and go around. There's different NPCs to talk to, like Professor Pac here.
Pac Village, heart of Pac.
We don't have to get too much into that. But you can talk to different NPCs here. In this version specifically, there are costumes you can equip, so you can actually slowly unlock costumes as you go throughout the game. Each level will have different objectives, and especially all the earlier levels, or most of the earlier levels, will have 3 different objectives. Like you see here, there's like clear the stage, obtain a score. Sometimes it's collect all the fruit, sometimes it's get the minimum at least the minimum time in time trial mode, which is after you beat a level. And a lot of the rewards for that are costumes. Now you can see here, I just have all these costumes, or most of these, because I've Um, Pre-ordered some of these. I got the pre-order bonus with the Pac-Man costume, but also the digital deluxe version unlocks some of those costumes for you. But you will unlock more as you go through the game and complete those objectives in each stage. So it's a fun little reward. Getting different costumes for Pac-Man is great. What else is here is there's this room which essentially you can unlock different arcade games. So like classic Pac-Man. No Miss Pac-Man here. I think that might have been in the original Pac-Man World 2, but obviously issues with the rights in recent years has prevented them from re-releasing that game. Also new to this game is this like gacha machine. If you've played Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the most recent 3D Kirby game, it's similar to that, where you unlock these different tokens in the levels, you can collect them, and you can use them to get these different like figurines and stuff. Now, I did not get all of these. There is a way to, essentially it's nice because every time if you get a repeat of a collectible, you can literally cash it back in, get your coins back, and just keep spinning until you get the new one. So it's honestly not really a gacha. It's more like you have chances to get all of the different collectibles, assuming you have to get enough coins, of course. It's like 3 coins per figure, but it's a fun little collectible as well, and you can also, like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, find some of those in the levels themselves. But in terms of Pac-Man's core moveset here, we can go over it. Of course, you're eating dots, you're eating fruits, which are collectibles in every stage, and also this Pac Village hub world here. And so for here, there's a ton of them, right? There's a huge list. You can see the fruit. That's not for everything here, right? That's not for every level. This is just because it's the hub world specifically. But you can see on the right, you've got your tokens. Top left, you've got your life counter, and that's your health as well, those 4 pieces that make up the Pac-Man symbol. And then the bottom left, which is new to this game, which at least I believe it's new to this game, I don't think it was in the original. The original Pac-Man World RePac also did this. You can throw dots in this game that you collect, and so you can actually like hit enemies, which I did actually find useful in some of the later stages that were a little challenging. But sometimes you'll find crates along the way to be able to break open fruit. You have a flip kick in this game, which I also don't remember. Let me know in the comments below, fans, because I genuinely don't remember it from the original game. I don't believe the flip kick was very used. Like, it wasn't very useful or used a lot in the original Pac-Man World 2, but I use it all the time in this game. It is a very, very nice melee attack for Pac-Man. We can jump into the first level here. You can see those are the 3 missions, and we'll get started and check it out. But yeah, so you have the Pac dot throw, you have the flip kick, you also have, it's like a Sonic spin dash, essentially, if you haven't played the Pac-Man World games, where you charge up and then you do this kind of roll around. Really useful there are some places where you have to use it to like go off of ramps, but it's also really useful for dodging enemies really quickly. So that's something to keep in mind there. And the other thing you have is this butt bounce. Whereas you saw before, I did this little butt bounce thing. Now in this game, and I believe it's specific to this version, there is the super butt bounce, where you see that ring closing in on Pac-Man. If you time it right, you do an extra, it just essentially makes you go extra high. Little bounce to go up like that. So yeah, the other thing, another change with the collectibles, first of all, you can actually pause and check how many there are in a level. That was not in the original Pac-Man World 2, except on like the stage select screen. When you're in the level, there was no way of knowing until you got them all, and it gives you a little all fruit collected thing. That was not, there was no counter like in the top here. That was introduced in this game. They carried that over from Pac-Man World RePac. Much needed, fantastic. The other thing is that in the original Pac-Man World 2, that game actually kept track of the dots you collected. So you couldn't 100% a level unless you got every single dot, which is a little much in my opinion. In this game, thankfully, they get rid of that requirement, especially because they use it as like ammo for the Pac dot throw, right? So thankfully, they got rid of that, so much needed collectible changes. Another thing fans might notice if you play the original is Pac-Man actually has a drop shadow this time around, or at least it's very visible. That was one of my biggest issues in the original Pac-Man World 2. Sometimes depth perception was atrocious in that game, and you wouldn't be able to tell where you're trying to jump to, where you're trying to platform to, and it was honestly pretty challenging. Thankfully, I mean, that you could even say they're overcompensating here a little bit with Pac-Man's shadow here. You see that with the yellow outline on the bottom there, but it helps so much. It has genuinely helped with the platforming so much. Very much also appreciated, along with all of the changes and simplifications to Pac-Man's moveset, while also giving him some new stuff like the Pac throw. I didn't use the Pac dot throw very often, but when I did, you know, it definitely came in handy in some later stages for certain enemies, especially as like to hit them from far away if they're on a small platform in front of you. You want to avoid that. Definitely helped with that. But yeah, enemies are fairly fun in this game. I mean, let's just talk about the presentation first of all, because I think this game looks fantastic. Another difference between, I'm just going over the differences as we go. Another difference between the original Pac-Man World 2 and this game is the perspective, because you might remember in Pac-Man World 2, but that game was a lot closer to Pac-Man. Maybe something more similar to like this with the camera. I feel like something like this would be more accurate. By default in this game, it's definitely more far back, so you can see more, which honestly is a nice appreciated touch. It's a lot easier to see where you're going, which is super duper nice, especially in a game that has some vertical platforming. It's like nice to have that option. Thankfully, there are multiple checkpoints you can hit in every stage. You can see I'm already collecting some of those tokens I can use for the gacha machines there. And yeah, the way the figurines work is occasionally you'll come across these chests, and in order to get the figurines out of these chests, you'll need to provide the amount of fruit and get in there. Which that's also a nice indicator for if you're trying to go after all the fruit. If you get to a chest, like let's say the orange chest here, if I only had 2 out of 3 oranges, I probably would be like, okay, I think I missed another orange. Let me, if I can, you can't always backtrack, unfortunately. If I can though, let me go back and actually try to see if I can find that final orange. So you know, it's a nice indicator of that too. But yeah, this game, it looks way better in motion. You might have seen the little speed effect with the Pac Dot trail. I still really like doing those trails, by the way. I'm glad they brought those back because those are just really fun to go through. They feel even faster now than they did in the original game, which is cool. But yeah, they still have these maze sections like they did in the original game, which is fun, just as fun as ever. This game is, so here's the thing, right? I mean, let me finish the presentation first. I'm jumping ahead of myself here. This game looks fantastic. The soundtrack is fantastic. I don't know, let me know in the comments below if you can tell. I don't know if this is a remastered soundtrack or if it's the same music, because either way, it sounds great in this game. This game has always had a fantastic soundtrack. That was one of my favorite parts about the original, and so it's great to see it back here. Definitely some really good music here in this game. And yeah, the game just looks really great. I'm playing the Switch 2 version. I forgot to mention that ahead of time. Performs pretty well. I will say later on, there were definitely some moments where it didn't perform as well. Really towards the end of the game, when there's just a lot more happening on screen, I did notice a couple frame drops here and there, but it wasn't too bad. You know, not as bad as honestly you might expect. But yeah, no, the game itself runs pretty well on Switch, and I'm sure it'll look even better on like PC, PS5, Xbox, whatever you want to play on. But it's honestly great. There's all sorts of different abilities and power-ups you can get occasionally. The metal one is like the main one. It's literally your metal cap from Mario 64, but it works for what it is. What was I going to say? Oh, so there's actually, I don't know off the top of my head about level design in the stages here. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you know any off the top of your head without being too spoilery. What I will say is this game does change actually some of the boss fights from the original game. I will save that for the spoiler section, but if you're used to the original Pac-Man World 2, a lot of the boss fights are actually quite different. Some of the earlier ones are the same, but they actually do start to change. Okay, so it looks like I might have missed a melon, actually. Oopses. Oh, here we go. That could be it. Nope, that is the apple. I missed a melon. Well, I gotta go check it out. See, this, like I said, good indicator. It's possible it was underwater and I just missed it down here. No, I'm not seeing it there. But see, like already you can see. It's a good indicator of what might be the case. It could be related to the bear traps because you can destroy those, but no. I got the one up there. I actually don't know where I missed that one. That's okay. I don't need to get every single one since I've already did that in my other save file here. But yeah, normally there's like 3 levels per stage. Or sorry, 3 levels per world, and then followed by like a boss fight at the end. I probably missed it in a super obvious spot, but who knows. But talking about the difficulty of the game, like Pac-Man World 2 I found to be quite a challenging game, but mainly because of the controls. The camera wasn't great in that game. It's still a little iffy here, but it's definitely better. But the game itself, the core game itself, is not meant to be too difficult. I personally don't think it's too difficult. I'm just going to complete the stage here. But there is some stuff, I'm not going to say what, I'm going to say that for the spoiler section. The reason why it took me so long to get this review done, there's some stuff at the end. There's actually quite a bit of content in this game outside of the main campaign that gets really tricky. I struggled a lot, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler section, like I said. But, missed that melon, damn it, man. But the difficulty of the game overall is pretty solid. It is easier than the original Pac-Man World 2, and I really do think that is because of just how limited the original was in terms of like its platforming, its visibility, depth of field, all that stuff. Like I even like getting the collectibles, I hated doing that in the original game, whereas here they make it so much easier to see, you know, how to be able to do that. So the main content of this game is a lot more approachable than the original, I would say. I think this version is much more approachable, and to be honest, I don't think there's a reason to play the original Pac-Man World 2 in today's day and age with this game now being out. But there is quite a bit of difficult content later on, optional to be fair, if you want to explore that. I will get to that in the spoiler section. But yeah, overall, I mean, what else can I talk about, really? I don't want to play too much of it. I really, like, this game turned around my opinion on Pac-Man World 2. I knew Pac-Man World 2, the original, had a lot of good stuff going on at its core, but it's just, there was a lot of polishing issues. A lot of it felt rushed. And so thankfully, this game has gone through, made it feel a lot easier to control, cleaned up Pac-Man's moveset, added stuff like the super butt bounce, the drop shadow on Pac-Man is super useful. Just the controls being a hell of a lot easier. Pac-Man having this little flutter jump after he jumps a little bit. Occasionally, it's usually off of like the bounce pads that you come across in the game. And the collectibles being so much easier. Someone who really appreciates collectibles in a game, make it easy for me to tell how many collectibles I've gotten. Right? It shouldn't be this super cryptic thing like it was in the original, and they improved that a lot. There are still pretty gimmicky levels in here. You know, there's like the underwater levels, the skating levels. If you know, you know. I won't say anything else in case you don't want to be spoiled, but they do try to change up some of the gameplay here and there, especially towards the end of the game, the end of the main campaign. And, you know, some fans might find that a little strange, but I still think it works. If you play the original Pac-Man World, I think it'll be up your alley. But like I said, there's a lot here that is improved from the original, and there's a lot of content overall that's quite different. Like, honestly, I think the boss fight changes are for the better, in my opinion. I know some people might prefer that original game to keep that intact and just put it in HD, but no, I like the changes they made here. The level design, I think, feels pretty similar, although there might be some differences here and there just to make it easier. Overall, I found the main part of this game easier than what I played in the original Pac-Man World 2, and that really comes down to the polish. That comes down to all of the improvements that they made in terms of controls and visibility in this game. I think this is, honestly, this is a really fun game for me now. I really like what they did here to clean this game up and actually make me appreciate the game as a whole more, because I was worried with that original game. I did not like it, but this RePac makes it so much more approachable, and I would give this a high recommend if you're a 3D platformer fan, if you are a Collectathon fan. This is the version to play. I think this blows the original out of the water, personally. I mean, definitely let me know in the comments below if you still prefer the original. I just don't have nostalgia for that original release because I just played it a year and a half ago to this upload, so definitely a high recommend from this one, with a lot of optional and even difficult content, collectibles with the Gacha machine figures, all sorts of stuff going on here. And it's a fun little romp. It won't take you super duper long. I probably put like 20 hours with the optional content into the game, and that's even a lot. So yeah, definitely a high recommend on Switch 2, whatever platform you want to get it on. But that is going to be it for the kind of light spoiler section. So I'm going to jump into the full out spoilers, talk about especially some of that optional end game content and specifics with some of the levels and bosses. So if you want to avoid that, I'm going to give you a few seconds to click away, and then we'll jump into it. Alright, let's talk about how difficult this game gets. Because, and so I don't think this was in the original, but then again, I didn't collect all the fruit in the original. I beat the main story and that was it. But, man, this gets crazy. So having this whole optional world at the end, right? I think this was new to this game, and correct me if I'm wrong about it. like the idea of revisiting all of the bosses, just harder versions, but also I appreciate that it's not an entire 3 levels of per world in terms of that extra content here. It's just the 1 level per world, which I kind of like, and they kind of mix some of the other levels, like all like level design from all 3 levels together into one like difficult level. I actually found that pretty good in terms of this extra content here. But yeah, the fact that there's this whole optional world, I was ready to do a review once I beat Spooky the first time, and then I'm like, oh man, there's way more to do. I collected all the fruit in this game. What I will say is that I didn't do some of the challenges. So like, I hate this level. Sharks everywhere, hate this level. I did not complete all the challenges here. I couldn't do it. I think in order to get 24,000 or higher, you need to, I don't think you're allowed to die. I think that is the trick there. And those sharks are brutal. I also didn't do that for Spooky. I believe I did it for this level. Yeah, so I got most of the costumes and did most of the challenges. It was just like these couple levels here. Yeah, I didn't retry Spooky as well, because that Spooky fight was actually fairly difficult. But I appreciated having a little extra remix, the little plot point of having to rescue, what is it, Pac-Boy and Paxis? Is that what they're called now? I don't know. The renaming is interesting, but having a little extra thing is fun. And then, yeah, the fact that I definitely do not think this was in the original, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but having Talkman appear from Pac-Man World RePac, the original, was really cool. Really liked that. That boss fight was absurd. Let me know in the comments below. Well, actually, no, don't let me know in the comments below. Because I want to avoid spoilers, or add a spoiler tag to it. This freaking boss fight took me so long. First of all, the arena was cool. It gave me like Meta Knight vibes and Kirby. A lot of Kirby comparisons I feel like I can draw to this game now. That I actually appreciated and have played it more. Talkman coming out of here, adding some continuity to the original Pac-Man World was honestly kind of cool. Brutal boss fight. That took me way too long. It was tough. This was the hardest fight in the game for sure, which I mean makes sense. It's like the secret final boss, like optional final boss. I will not be doing time trial mode. What I wasn't sure about is that the Digital Deluxe version gave you the ghost costumes, and if you had the save file from the original RePac on your system, you could do... you could get the Talkman costume for Pac-Man. But, like, you can unlock the ghost costumes yourself in this game in the harder world, whatever, the Shadow World. I don't know, what do you call it? The Shadow Realm Jibbo? Like, what do you want to call that? I don't know if you could do that with the Talkman costume. I assume not. But I actually liked a lot of the changes they made when it came to like the boss fights in this game. I really like what they did here. The fact that they're all pretty much animal themed now, I really liked, because in the original, they were right, there was the frog. The frog was the same. And then it was like at least two of the bosses were just like that floating robot ghost thing. And I just thought that was like a little unoriginal, uninspired. So now you have the owl, I think might have been in the original, right? Let me know in the comments below. But the polar bear fight is actually one of my favorites. That one's really fun. I know that one's new. The spider one I'm pretty sure is new with the drum set. That one's tough but also fun. I think the orca might be the same from the original. I could be wrong about that. And then of course Spooky. The boss fights were quite solid in this game. I actually really liked a lot of the bosses here. The swimming controls still not great. The original, they weren't great either, but they're still not the best here. But yeah, I did as much as I could. The only things I didn't do were there were a few missions here and there in the harder world that I did not complete every single mission in those levels, especially some of those harder ones, because I figured I was done at that point. I got all the fruit. There's a couple of those I didn't do, and I beat every boss and level, and I gotta say, like, I now have a newfound appreciation for this game. This is a really good 3D platformer collectathon, and it still has some jankiness that I'm just used to from the original, like with the Pac submarine. The skating levels, actually, I really liked in this game. I did not like them in the original. I really like the skating levels in this game. It's a lot more fun here. The controls are so much better. And just being able to see more on screen because the camera is set back further by default, so much nicer. The collectibles are so much better. Everything here is better in my opinion. I'm struggling to think of something that the original does better. And I think a lot of that is because I don't have that nostalgia. Okay, you know the one thing the original does better? It has Miss Pac-Man instead of Pac-Mom. It's the only thing the original does better. But I just really liked all the improvements they made here. It's genuinely made me fall in love with this game. Whereas the original, some of you may remember when I streamed it a year and a half ago as of this upload, I just was clawing at teeth by the end of it. I was just like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Oh, Pac Night Era. Is that what that's called? The Pac Knight era? Interesting. Okay, I had no idea. Is it supposed to be like time travel? Like, what's going on? I'll have to do a video or stream in the future, probably a video, checking out the Sonic crossover content, because that's still not out as of this upload. I think it's going to be a couple more months away, based on the timeline they gave, but I'm excited to check those out. But, like, let me go back to the title screen as I wrap up here with this review, because this is already longer than I was originally anticipating, but that's okay. I had a lot to talk about this game.
Pac-Man World 2.
So, in summary, I had a lot to talk about with this game, because as someone who didn't like the original, recognized that the original Pac-Man World 2 had a lot of good platforming and collecting going on at its core. Just the overall package felt clunky, it felt rushed, it felt unpolished. The platforming in a lot of ways did not feel good, the collectibles were not handled great. Going to this game being like, I really hope they make this game. I want to see how they clean it up. And I think they knocked it out of the park. I think this is a fantastic 3D platformer. They cleaned up a lot with like the platforming itself, the platform mechanics, Pac-Man's moveset, the collectibles are handled so much better. Made some content changes like with the boss fights for the better in my opinion, and added a lot of extra content. I think there's a lot of content in this game now, and we have more coming later with the Sonic crossover DLC. I assume that's it, maybe more in the future, who knows, but overall this is a really good package. I would highly recommend Pac-Man World 2 RePac. I do not think you have any reason to go back to the original personally. This is more accessible, it looks better, it runs better, the music is the same, great as always, and fun content with, I mean, it's not a perfect game. There was still some platforming jank in here left from the mid-2000s era when it originally came out in terms of some of the core level design and movesets, but it's still really, really fun, and I think if you're a 3D platformer collectathon fan, I think you should check this one out, especially Kirby. The more I talked about this, the more I realized this has in common with Kirby, I feel like. Not in terms of the copy abilities, but in terms of the general vibes and some of the gameplay mechanics going on. You know, I would definitely give it a shot if you're into it. It's on pretty much all modern platforms, I think. I mean, I'm playing this on Switch too, and it runs for the most part really well here. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this review video, but this gets a thumbs up from me. So let me know your thoughts on Pac-Man World 2 RePac and the original Pac-Man World 2. Let me know them in the comments below. Let me know which one you prefer. Try to keep it no delight spoilers, please, if you can. And yeah, definitely would like to know your thoughts. But with that, thank you all so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, keep on munching on those dots, and I'll see you later.